I'll start somewhere fucked because it ends that way. 3 weeks before me in Unit 504, there's a murder down the street a few blocks away. A woman, a student I think, gets stabbed a dozen or so times walking home drunk from a party. It's horrendous. The guy, the fuck that killed her, stabs her so hard at one point that the knife blade breaks from the handle. He did other things too, but the news doesn't spend a lot of time talking about stuff like that. I didn't know her, but my mom pretends like she might as well be my bestie, a near miss for me. She was a student just like you, she says. Pretty just like you. Mom sends me websites with crimes in the area displayed in little colored circles. Robberies, a couple. Stolen cars, a few. Theft, minor assault, it's a college town. No arson. One old burglary. The website hasn't yet included the murder and the other thing. Rape. It felt weird to pretend like that was a secret. It happened. The guy that did it can fucking rot. My mom tells me that the neighborhood isn't safe. Okay. But it's cheap enough and I get a job at the college bookstore which doesn't pay enough for me to live in some magical fucking place where crime doesn't happen. And yes, I am unsettled and feel more vulnerable for being a woman, and isn't that always the way of it? There's nothing safe. It's a city, a smallish one, but a city nonetheless. Someone sold coke to those rich kids on Gossip Girl, right? They had maids and cocktail parties and evening gowns. Crime is everywhere. I promise my mom I'll be safe. I'm a grown-up. Kinda. And I'm staying on my cousin Ronald's couch until I find a place of my own. This is not ideal. His wife is really into trying to get pregnant and they have thin walls and she is very loud, very theatrical. It takes me 2 weeks online to find an apartment in a 7-story building with an elevator, which is strangely thrilling. I don't know if my mom's attitudes toward urban safety are a giveaway, but I'm from the suburbs and we don't have what I ridiculously first thought of as a skyscraper. Provincial me. Now, I'm stupid when it comes to the real world. I'll admit that. To me, there are the suburbs where things are boring and people go to Target or Sweet Frog to hang out, and then there's the city where everything else is possibly normal. The apartment is therefore possibly normal. It's on the 5th floor in the corner of the building and it's fully furnished-ish. The landlord, a man named Harold, tells me on the phone that the previous tenants skipped town in a hurry and left everything behind. It's all mine if I want it. He didn't leave because the place is like haunted? I ask, chuckling just a bit because of course it's not. Dead fucking air. He had a TV, Harold says finally. A Samsung, very big. Oh. Cool. Samsungs are nice, I respond, as if that were in any way what was really on my mind. Harold murmurs something. He has a bit of an accent, not foreign, I don't think, but distinct. He says people with it are in the middle, almost like purple. I agree to meet him the next day at the building. Harold is some age where his hair is half gray and very thin. He has a paunch, has yellow suspenders that are meant to look like measuring tape, he has adult braces, top and bottom, that he tries to cover with his lips when he talks. He shuffles toward the elevator and I hope that he can't tell that I feel kinda sorry for him. I imagine him as a child as he hits the 5 button. He didn't see himself doing this, I bet, looking like this, getting old and staying awkward. He frowns droopily until we get to the door to Unit 504. Then he half smiles the way someone does with a family member of someone who died. Sorry about the mess, miss, he mumbles. Sorry instead of sorry. The place really isn't that messy. It's a guy's apartment, clearly. Bare windows, posters, practical. There's a fleece blanket half on the sofa, half on the floor, a few plates in the sink, the bathroom is tidy. In the living room there's a shallow nook with a drop cloth and a roll of blue tape and a paint can on the floor. The color of the nook is whiter than the other walls. It looks like a newly capped tooth. Wet paint, Harold warns. Don't touch it yet. He gestures to his jeans, the smudges of white. No problem. Thanks for the heads up, Harry. I ask if he's planning on painting every wall. No. Why the nook then? He chews his lip, fiddles with his suspenders. He doesn't make eye contact as he tells me that there was graffiti on the wall from the previous tenant. Something weird. Harold and his sister tried to get up the candle wax and the other stuff. The smell should be gone by the time I move in if I want the place. Graffiti? Other stuff? My interest is morbidly piqued. I pry. But all I get out of Harold is that there was some kind of shrine. He doesn't elaborate other than to say that the tenant was a problem. He does offer to take $200 off the first month's rent because I seem like a nice regular girl. So, I don't particularly believe in ghosts or demons or anything like that. I believe in fear. I believe in looking at clouds and seeing things because your brain wants everything to mean something. I believe in drunk pretty students getting brutalized by human garbage. I know that occasionally some beautiful Gothic mansion with a grim story sits empty despite having a great price. Clearly, rational home buyers will allow themselves to believe in ghosts enough to pass up a deal. But I am a renter on a budget. $250? I counter. Curtains and rugs are outrageously expensive. He shuffles. Done. I move in 2 days later. And that first day, I try to keep busy. Like I said, ghosties, no. Not a thing for me. But fear, especially the irrational kind, I've got that. I take down Mr. Graffiti's posters except for one that I actually kinda like. I empty food from the fridge. Mr. Graffiti has left a case of beer and half a bottle of whiskey. I find pot in the bedroom, condoms which I will not be using, lots and lots of clothes. It's strange. It almost seems like he left intending to return. The more I think about that and the shrine, the more little sounds and little feelings of unease begin to fill the silent moments. Scratches, creaks, footsteps. I look up the way a scared squirrel sometimes does more times than I'd care to admit. I play music, podcasts, I bag boy clothes, I go out for sushi with cousin Ronald and his wife. Ronald, who is much closer to my age than my mom's, says that he would have been thrilled to inherit booze from a stranger at 19. He theorizes that the shrine was satanic and that Mr. Graffiti was probably taken to hell in a ritual gone amiss. His wife, Clara, rolls her eyes and fumbles with tuna. She asks if I've met any good-looking people at work. Nope. She doesn't say good-looking girls, but I know she's making an effort to be an awkward ally. We make small talk. College, majors, television. Then, Clara fucks me up. What if the tenant killed himself in the apartment? And they don't want to say. What the fuck, Clara? I've listened to your porn star auditions. You've made me fruit salad. I thought we were friends. I say nothing, because, cards on the table, it does make some sense and I hate it. And then I go back to my suicide apartment and try not to think about it. I turn on the absurdly large TV. Mr. Graffiti's Netflix is still logged in. His name is Dean. Dean loves foreign movies apparently. He likes sci-fi and cooking shows. Suddenly he feels real in a way that I could overlook when he was just posters and everything else. I drink one of Dean's beers, watch one of Dean's shows, hear a thump behind me, and a quiet sort of growl. The Nook. The apartment is on the corner of the building. The Nook is on an outside wall, 5 stories up. The next 2 weeks are eventful. On the news, they talk about the dead student. There are no suspects. There's a vigil at the bar she walked home from. My mom texts me and tells me I should go, which is a pass for me, but I tell her I'll think about it. I make a friend at the bookstore, a fellow queer suburban youth named Aaron. They call every scrawny, obviously frightened freshman an undercover zaddy. They make me laugh. Then I meet a good-looking person in the laundry room of my building. Her name is Elena. She has a CrossFit kind of body and chews her hoodie strings. She has gorgeous thick curly hair. I catch her listening to Dua Lipa and Elton John, folding her clothes, smirking about something. We chat. I somehow end up mentioning that my cousin-in-law is loud in bed. Elena asks me to do an impression. There's a vibe. It goes somewhere. By the time school starts, I'm feeling settled and happy. I like my classes alright. I get curtains and framed pictures, and the bar where Elena works lets me drink. Then shit at home gets a little more weird than usual. Up until now it's been thumps and bumps. Things I can ignore. It is a Tuesday night and Elena is at my place and we're fooling around in the bedroom. I'm doing something that makes it hard to hear and Elena stops me all of a sudden. She looks drawn. I heard a scream, she says. It sounded like it came from inside your apartment. Not particularly possible. The door is locked. We're alone. The next part, well, there are times when you wish you weren't mostly naked. We go into the living room. No screamers, television off, Elena freezes. I see the second later, in the wall of the nook, a nail, a trickle of blood. Now that alone would be scary enough, but the nail is poking from the wall, point side out. There is nothing but a 5-story drop on the outside of this wall. Where is that blood coming from? I don't know. How is this here? I don't know. But it wasn't here before? Elena, I think I would have noticed a bloody nail coming out of the wall. We're looking at it the way I think every kid watches popcorn in the microwave at one point or another, fascination, reticence. I practically jump into Elena as the nail moves, as it slowly slides back into the wall and out of sight. Nope. We get dressed faster than we got undressed and get the fuck out. I lock the door. We go to Elena's. We tell the story to Elena's roommate Kristen and Kristen's boyfriend, Breathy, talking over each other. Everyone agrees that my apartment is probably haunted. Kristen insists that we have a seance. She has a perfect seance cabernet. Sure. The coming Friday is the 13th, which, I don't know why that seems like a good idea, but Kristen gets excited. What's your apartment? She asks. I tell her, 504. Wait, Dean's place? What? So, apparently Dean and Kristen know each other from their grad program. They study together on occasion. He's smart. Fucking brilliant in a way that necessitates a bit of normalcy. He tells terrible jokes and unwinds with a huge TV and cheap beer. Elena makes drinks and the boyfriend watches a show and Kristen thinks out loud. I wonder if he left because she stands and paces. You know that girl from the news? The dead woman. The victim, student, person. The one who should have made it home. Kristen says the student knew Dean too. They go on a few dates. Maybe more. Dean hasn't mentioned moving, she says. Weird. I tell my part about Dean's stuff. About the shrine and the graffiti. I threw away his clothes. The guy who was dating a murder victim. I feel shitty. Kristen looks fucking lost. Why hasn't he said anything about any of this? I ask her what she means. I texted him yesterday. We talked about Sylvie, the student. I figured I'd see him in the laundry room or back at school. He said he was pretty messed up about Sylvie. She pulls out her phone. Texts him. What's up? How are you? Hey. Watching a movie at my place. And you know. SOSO. Kristen reads aloud. His place. My place. She doesn't know he's lying. I prod, orchestrate. She asks if she can call him or maybe come over. Another time. Heading to bed. There is no more. That night I stare up at the wall above Elena's bed. She cuddles against me and I'm so glad for how solid and how warm she feels sometimes. Because all I can think about is my wall. Dean's wall. The wall with some message that he left. Something that's right there beneath the surface and nowhere to be found. It's nearly 8 a.m. I feel crazy and Elena is silently cradling a coffee cup. She looks both groggy and alert, slump-backed and wide-eyed. We're in my living room, staring at an immaculate wall. No hole. No blood. You remember? Yep. It definitely happened. We saw it. Two fuck tipsy, but chemically sober, rational adults. and I want no part of the fucked reality of it all. I dress for work. Elena walks with me. It's kinda protective and it's sweet, and she holds my hand like a girlfriend would. I find myself checking strangers' faces for my mom's. I know she's not there, but my reality seems surreal and I'm having a lot of mixed emotions. Elena kisses me outside of the bookstore. In public. And for a moment I weigh my ghost apartment against the good parts of a city where I'm not an object of scandal. And then I feel like saying I love her. The thought comes up like vomit. I don't say anything. Maybe she knows what I'm thinking. Maybe I'm just being dumb, childish. I smile and watch her walk back toward the apartment, her gait cheery. I manage about half an hour before I tell my coworker Aaron about the nail and everything else. They know some of the details already, the noises, the nook, the abandonment of the apartment. It's Dean's connection to Sylvie, the dead student, that they find most intriguing. They wonder if the two fucked in my apartment. Then they wonder if Dean killed her. The thought has crossed near my mind. The murder was angry, personal. Dean disappeared in a hurry. It doesn't explain my landlord Harold and the shrine. Or the sounds. There are a lot of sounds, and I know, suburban girl in the city in an apartment building, of course there are. But these are the weird ones, the ones that don't sound like Spotify or conversation or walking around. These only pop up in my living room. The scream was the most jarring, but there are taps, bumps, whispers. There are little muted animal sounds and bars of quiet melodies. It's never constant, but it's noticeable. My show or movie will lull and I'll hear it, like something trying to insert itself into my relaxation. Whatever it is, I think it knows I'm there. I turn, wondering if I'm being watched, feeling like I am. My little hairs spring up, my skull tingles. It's fucked. Elena makes it easier, but we're too new for me to take her for granted. Aaron thinks I'm hearing things. I can't blame them. The nail is something I fucking saw and something I only half believe. Sometimes only the unease feels real and I feel pitiful and I feel fragile. Whatever. I pull old stickers off of books. Put on new ones. A new color for a new semester. Aaron is terrible at working and excellent at talking their way out of trouble. They read a book about Gaudi then thumbed through their phone. It's so tragic, they say. Sylvie had a killer Insta. They've been following the story. Not the official story from the news, but the gossip. Sylvie had a stalker. Sylvie had turned down a guy at the bar. She kissed him. She kissed a girl on a dare. She wasn't wearing panties. The killer took them as a trophy. It all sounds like bullshit. Aaron reads some of the replies to her photos. She might be more popular dead than she was alive. Real friends and tragedy junkies say how great she was, how pretty. I mention the seance and Aaron eagerly invites himself. I finish my shift feeling numb. I don't know Sylvie or Dean. I don't care. I put on a dress and Aaron and I go dancing too early for anyone to be having fun but us. Over the baseline, Aaron yells that maybe the landlord would tell me more now that I'm not a stranger. Maybe. I stumble giggling into Elena's apartment and whatever her day has been, she's out cold. I try to rouse her and she grumbles and I masturbate beside her and she doesn't ever wake. It's raining on Friday morning when I talk to Harold. The sky is gray, dim. I can't shake the feeling of clamminess that follows me as I clean for the seance. Harold arrives exactly when we plan to meet, knocking assertively. That energy's gone when I open the door. I invite him in, offer him water, which is something my mother would do. He declines. Then there's a moment where I'm organizing my thoughts and he says nothing. He stares somewhere in the vicinity of my face, not my eyes. My chin maybe. He leans to one side, his shoulders slack, his knee bent, but he doesn't shift or wobble. I wonder if he would stand like this, silently waiting for me to speak, forever. He doesn't know why he's here, in my home. I told him something vague and he stands, patiently, lonely, not asking why. I mentioned Dean. Why would he just leave? Then Sylvie. They were dating. She was killed. Harold shakes his head in a way that says a tragic loss. Did you ever see her? I ask. He hums, says he sees too many kids. One never makes an impression. He wanders to the wall of the nook, brushes his hand over it. He asks why I haven't put anything on it. No art pictures, he says. I shrug, take the opening and ask about the graffiti. What did it say? He shakes his head again, and for the first time since he's entered he seems to actually look around my apartment instead of at nothing in particular. Then he looks at me. The same thing I always find written on that wall, he says, and no one sees what always looks. What? Always? Then he's antsy, pacing. He asks if there's a problem with the unit. Is the heat working? The water? Why did I need him? He's very busy. He should have listened to his sister. Shouldn't have come. All we students do is play games and waste people's time. He needs to go. He slams the door behind him. And I'm alone, staring at the wall in the nook. Kristen's Cabernet comes with a tote bag full of candies and a Ouija board and 2 more bottles of Cabernet. Her boyfriend drags politely behind her. Aaron tries to engage the room with a conversation about Saturn and astrology and horrible happenings. Elena checks her phone. She's dressed as a bartender, tank top, tight jeans. Her shift starts in an hour and her ass looks great and no one knows how to hold a seance. The gathering turns into every other small college party. Drinking, chat, and opinionated debate on a dozen half-conceived topics. Aaron knows a drinking game. The boyfriend talks to Elena about the gym. He's out of his depth and doesn't seem to know it. Elena has a habit of ramping up for a shift by flirting about everything. She'll come home with a pocket full of cash. The candles are flickering by the time she leaves. Some are scented and the room smells confused. It's dark, and I realize that something about the theater of summoning spirits has made my unease feel almost corny. We're just playing a game of hauntings. I put my fingers on the planchette beside Kristen's. She asks if a spirit is present. D or maybe E. It's close to yes, Kristen says, then something about the veil. What's your name? Oren. I feel my fingers being pulled. Aaron downs their cup of wine. Nothing is definitive until Aaron gives it a go. Kristen shakes out her wrists and exhales the way a mom flattens a duvet, retidying her world. Why are you here? Dior. Hell. Kristen makes a tiny whine and Aaron is smirking slightly and the wall thumps. Everyone lurches. I jump. A sort of moan follows. Another thump, a kind of cooing whisper. Tap, tap, tap. Kristen shrieks. That came from the front door, she whispers. The hallway. The boyfriend volunteers to check it out. He comes back with a pale, twisted scowl. I'm not opening the door, he says. The landlord is out there, just, staring into the peephole. Why is he here? I don't have an answer for that. And I don't want to go to the door, but then I do and I look through the peephole and see nothing, the hallway, and a dark smudge just to the left. I hold my breath and hear someone else's. Harold? Tap, tap. Quiet. You shouldn't have those kids over, he says. The neighbors are complaining about the noise. The rest is conspiratorial whispers and timid swigs. It's short-lived. I go back to Kristen and Elena's and Elena comes back drunk around 4 a.m. She ebbs and flows in the bed, tosses, tells me she needs to be honest with me about something. She fucked someone else after her shift. A guy. She didn't know him. I'm too tired for anything but sleep. If our relationship is wounded that night, if I am, then it's a festering open wound. It comes with flies. It comes with the reek of lavender and death and me avoiding my living room whenever I can. My mom doesn't understand. My friend is a silly infatuation, an idiot boy who didn't know what he had. Maybe she's right, but fuck, it doesn't feel that way. The flies are actual flies. They bounce around the windows, buzzing, freckling the walls. Aaron calls it an omen, talks about the devil. I'm sick of feeling haunted. By the Nook and Dean's demons. By my kitchen and my bed that still remember Elena for me. I want her. To yell at her and forgive her and hate her and be with her. But she stops texting when I can't bring myself to say a thing back. Then I am in the elevator on some slow day, slumping and moping after work in class, tired. An old woman gets on at the second floor. She's thin, sharp-featured, somebody's grandmother probably. At the fifth floor, the door opens and the woman says, "You cause my Harold plenty of problems, you know. He's a sensitive boy. Always has been." I'm not particularly in the mood for whatever the hell this is, but I stand against the elevator doors and let the woman talk. Harold is her younger brother. Her son almost. Their father left them for a flouncy little slut. Bastard. Their mother drank. Now the siblings manage the building together. Harold the handyman, Lorelei keeping the books. She introduces herself in that same accent of Harold's. Lorelei, in Unit 604. It's the unit above mine. Lorelei sighs. Tells me that maybe Harold can handle problems, maybe he deserves that. He mentioned the boy, Dean, to her. Mentioned that I was curious about everything. She has photos of the graffiti, the shrine. Videos from the lobby of Dean and the dead girl. She invites me up. "Do you like tea?" she asks. Her grandmother, God rest her soul, always thought that there was no bad day a cup of tea and a drop of honey couldn't fix. I want to say no, to fall into my bed and sleep. But the way Lorelei smiles, a smile that I might muster with some effort, it makes me wonder if she doesn't feel as lonely as me. Her odd brother, her bruised childhood. I agree, and then I'm entering an apartment like mine, full of someone else's things like mine once was. She leads me to a dining table past piles of junk and haphazard furniture. Tall armoires and chunky fraying armchairs. Her nook is somewhere hidden behind it all, and I'm happy to slouch and pretend I don't know it's there. I stare at a painting of a man and his dog in the rain, and an odd small quilt on the wall with mad patches of lace and stripes in color. Lorelei starts a kettle in the kitchen, like my kitchen where Elena taught me to make a Sazerac and a Negroni. I settle. Then, my mind rebels, spitefully. I yell to Lorelei, "Harold isn't here, is he?" "No, dear." "Is English breakfast all right?" "Thank God." Yeah. Thank you." Then I'm on my phone, looking at photos, opening a text. I type. "Hey." She responds immediately. Shuffling dots for a minute, then. "I might be a shitty person. You're not. Or maybe just a little. I miss you." "Yeah. Same. What are you up to?" "Don't judge, having tea with Harold the landlord's sister." I put down my phone as Lorelei trots in and sets down my cup. I thank her, sip, gulp, feel warmed. She says she won't be a minute with the photos. Elena has texted. LOL. Golden Girls is a vibe. Okay, so don't think I'm a stalker, but I was looking at the building the other day. You were home. Your lights were on. I was thinking about you and then I noticed something. She sent a photo. Do you see it? I look at the picture, slightly grainy. It's evening. The building's siding is white stucco, 7 stories, almost Mediterranean looking. There are dozens of windows. I find mine quickly, corner unit, 5 rows up. The corner, my bedroom, curtains green against the light. My bathroom, a small window. My living room has one window with another green curtain. I see it. And between it and the bathroom, another window, dark. Where the nook should be. I stand, feeling stress or dread or something unbalancing. I meander around the maze of furniture, around a lacquered dressing screen, to the space in 604 where the nook should be. There's a window, a bundle of chains rolled beneath it. Blue plastic pieces. An emergency ladder. I stumble backward into a banquette. China rattles. My limbs feel heavy. Then I don't know. I'm touching my phone, sloppy fingers. The screen is spinning. The room, my vision. Then black. Everything, black. Footsteps. The subtle scent of lavender perfume. A voice in my ear. You know, my handsome Harold always said you smelled like cunt. You easy girls go after anything, don't you? Well, there is nothing in the middle. No dream. No Oz. I awake in a hospital bed, wearing a gown, seeing Kristen's face. She tells me not to get up. I'm too woozy anyway. My mouth is dry. The story she knows came from Elena. An hour after my last text, gibberish, she went to check on me at my place. She had a key. I gave her one once. She finds a woman, tying me up with rope. On my living room floor. Elena goes feral on the woman. Breaks 2 of her ribs and that bone around the eye. She calls the police afterward. Then Elena's making a statement and showing the texts and shouting about the Nook. No one is listening until she takes an end table and heaves it at the wall. The police almost shoot her. And then, they see the flies crawling from the hole she made in the drywall and they smell the lavender and smell something worse beneath it. The officer told the rest, the space behind my wall, the body, doused with perfume, tied with rope, gagged. Dean. He'd been missing for 5 months. The police had been looking for him. Because of Sylvie. But he hadn't been dead that long. The police tore down the wall. And found a rough-cut hidden corridor beside it. And in back of Dean was another body in a wall and another body in a wall like files in a filing cabinet. Then a window just below Unit 604. None of them had enough room to turn their heads. They pissed and shit between the walls. They waited, extending a hand into that corridor to tap their haunting pleas. The oldest body had been there for 15 years. All of them were missing persons. College students who up and vanished, a man, a woman, and Dean. And all of them had someone special in their lives. A woman, a man, and Sylvie. Only Sylvie was ever found. I feel sick as Kristen wrinkles her nose. For nearly 5 months, Dean had been alive, in my wall, bumping and tapping. Someone kept him there, feeding him, giving him water, hurting him. He was quiet, and then when he wasn't, when he was screaming, I ran away. I asked Kristen about Lorelei and Harold. She says Lorelei is in custody. And Harold? They're still looking for him. They think he'll be a match for the DNA they found in Sylvie. They think he and his sister worked together. My skin crawls thinking about all of it. And then I think about what might have happened. I was receding from my life, alone. People would have concocted justifications for my disappearance. She seemed sad. Out of sorts. Recent breakup. And another new student would have rented an apartment on the 5th floor with a slightly shallower nook. But Elena protected me. Where is she? I ask. I want to ask her so much and say nothing at all. Kristen parts her lips as if to speak, then closes them again. Her chin trembles. Elena wanted to be here when I woke. She walked to the hospital the day before. It's been a while since then. Now, there are days I can almost trick myself into believing she's somewhere good, somewhere safe. Or just somewhere someone will find her. I want to start out by saying I'm not a cop, I'm not a park ranger, I'm not some Bigfoot hunter that would just run off into the woods for nothing. I don't live in a farmhouse with a shotgun under my bed for the coyote sounds some people just decide are skinwalkers. I've been hiking for as long as I could walk. My dad taught me what specific birds looked like, and then what they sounded like. Even now, there's a shelf 5 feet high in my living room stocked with nature books. I knew the differences between local species of woodpeckers before I was 8. I've been a wildlife researcher in Wyoming for maybe 7 years now. I'm a young guy, kind of baby-faced, so I get odd looks a lot while I'm out with all the equipment. It's rural here. Mostly livestock. Quiet, apart from when everyone drives up to Cheyenne for the rodeo every year. I can't go anymore, saw a horse break its leg during the wild horse race and I never really got over it. Sorry, I am kind of distracted. I had to fill up jerrycans for my truck the other day, and my mind is so all over the place even the station's cashier noticed. It feels really far away. What happened to me? 5 days ago. I went into a private swathe of forest on the edge of a lake, all owned by some group of enterprising millionaires wanting to build some of those stupid cabins you see on TV with the marble counters despite the rustic goal. Distracted again. Anyway, I was out there because they found 6 dead elk within 1 week. 1 week. This property is big, but it's not that big. There are wolves in Yellowstone, not here, and they obviously wanted to know if there was some big fuck-off bear starting to kill for sport. Some of the rich hunters that rented weeks during the season would be angry, too, if bulls they'd been following on trail cams got eaten before they could be stuck up above the fireplace. The first carcass they marked was 3/4 of a mile in. I'm an alright navigator, sometimes have trouble getting places, but I'm good at following markers on my way out. I'm pretty visual. It was late morning, maybe 10. I wasn't going to be an idiot and let it get dark. The first body told me it wasn't a bear. I didn't know what my opinion really was yet, or if I ever had one. I don't know if you've ever seen an elk, or someone posing with a dead one, but they're big. This one had an almost cartoonish impact imprint in the pine needles, like those craters asteroids leave in movies. Like it had been tossed diagonally toward the ground really hard. It was a cow, on her side, split from where her jawbone ended at her neck all the way down. Between both front legs, down her gut, stopping after her back legs. I noticed almost immediately when, what do you do? You know. Examine, poke it with a stick. I put my gloves on and took a closer look at whatever it was that almost cleaved her in half, maybe 6 inches to spare. The cut was sharp. I've never seen anything like it. Right through her sternum, the smoothest I'd seen anything like that. With the shoulder-high gloves on, I examined her internally, propping the upper of her front legs up. Her heart and her liver were missing. It scared me. I think I was trying to rationalize it. I got there and saw her, no blood on the ground, with 2 missing organs, and guts all neatly in place like they'd been put back when. Yeah. I just told myself it was poachers. When I got to the second carcass, a bull elk, it started to change my mind. I don't know if you've ever been around something decaying or had a mouse die in your house. It doesn't take a lot of flesh to make something stink. You can empty your pool filter too close to the house and still smell the bugs. Neither of them stunk. At all. At the bull, I noticed what I hadn't at the cow. There were no flies. His liver was missing like hers, and though I had trouble leveraging his leg up and got kind of frustrated, I found his heart was missing too. The injuries were the same. Dead, stone cold dead. I've been around a lot of animals that have died in some way or another. Nothing had ever chilled me to my goddamn bones like this did. I was on the way to the third one when I was attacked. I never got to see the third one or the remaining 3 because I ended up having to drive to the clinic after. I'm going to try to give this as much detail as I fucking can remember because I swear I'm not crazy. There were these 2 rocks with a hiking trail between, the path worn by both animals and people. The rocks went up maybe 10 feet on either side, each about the width of how my truck is long with a couple feet between them and the path. I remember thinking I needed to try spikes for my boots because the pine needles this time of year got pretty slippery in places where they were thick. I didn't hear anything really notable. I crushed a pine cone under my boot, and then it was on me. It looked like something I'd imagine would crawl out of a cave, in the body. Slim. Bipedal, but with digitigrade hind legs. It came out of nowhere, and it was so quiet. You're going to ask me how I even noticed all of that, and it's because it jumped down from the rocks to land in front of me. I was almost out, and there was a lot of ground behind me to cover. 1 step back, and it pushed its back foot at me. Not all that fast, not a blow, just the way someone would reach for a handshake. It had hooves, and I smelled burnt hair. I remember now those videos from that martial arts style where you can do 1-inch punches and, yeah. It felt like a car hit me in the chest. Like I'd taken a hit from a bighorn ram. It crushed the breath out of me and I flew backward. The forest floor broke my fall, and by the time I gasped in air and focused, it was staring me directly in the eyes. Its skin wasn't white. Not really. Translucent. I could see its veins and arteries, pulsing beneath, in the rhythm of a heartbeat pushing so quickly. It was maybe shock, maybe fear that kept me still with it down on all fours like that. I don't think it was breathing. We were so close that I could see the blood vessels in its eyes. It was larger than me, larger than an elk. Moose-sized. As big as a fucking full-size van. Its head was a foot wide, maybe more, gaunt and shaped like a bison skull. The skin was stretched over it so tight it looked like it'd rip, its nostrils long slits that went maybe halfway up its head. The eyes that looked into mine were large, with no fleshy eyelid, and when it finally blinked 2 clear lids came in from the outer edges of its eyes. Its scars, besides the blood vessels, red, like us, were so white. Everything's got a little color in its eyes, but this was the whitest white I'd ever seen. There wasn't an iris, and its pupil was just clear. Like when they take a photo of the back of your eye at the eye doctor. It felt like I was seeing the inside of its skull in it. Fuck. Sorry. I'm trying to be rational and not get all shivery and supernatural with it. It just stared. I'd worked with dogs when I started my career with animals. It was instinct, maybe, wanting it to be done quick or trying to calm it like I'd talk to dogs with my body language. I tilted my head up and to the side, went limp, closed my eyes. It felt like 2 hours before it moved. It probably was 5 minutes. I opened my eyes when I heard it rustle, but didn't move. It brought up its front foot arm, I guess, stood up a little higher, and that's when I understood. It looked like it had fucking sides on its hands. A palm shaped like ours, 1 finger joint, then these claws a foot long. 3 of them and a thumb that had no claw at all. I thought I almost knew it had cut me in fucking half and I'd be gone, but it moved so slow. It brought that hand up, took 1 of its 4 fingers and dragged the claw down from my collarbone. I was wearing a canvas coat, with a sweatshirt and thermals underneath. It started to split me. I moved my head, like watching a car crash, as it sliced through all of my clothing and down into my skin like air. Not like butter, like air. It cut maybe a ½ inch into me. Adrenaline is a fucking drug, I'll tell you that. It stopped 2 inches below my belly button, and then it turned and started to walk away like nothing had happened at all. Just moseying, as I sat up a little and started to really feel it. It had turned away from me, stood up tall. The horns it had reminded me of 5 pronghorns spliced, not quite antlers, and now I saw it had floppy bald ears like a pig. I could see where every vertebrae in its body pushed up against the skin, the definition of every muscle like a shaved horse on every steroid. With its skin that clear, it almost blended and reflected the colors around it. I laid there and watched it go until I couldn't see it anymore, toward the lake. I think I heard a boat motor. I didn't even care. We managed to get on my feet. I fucking ran. There was paracord in my truck, and I put my jacket on backwards and tied it around me to put on some pressure while I drove to the tiny medical clinic. My brain gets a little spotty right before that. Quiet town, nobody kicked by a horse today, so I got in and the doctor, Jen, I've known her since I moved here. Older lady, got to me immediately. I remember that she took the jacket off and went kind of pale, looking at. There wasn't any blood. I could see my flesh split perfectly down the middle. In the mirror on the wall above the sink in the exam room, I saw how well it was centered between the bumps of my collarbones. She told me they'd bandage it, and I just basically sat there in some kind of shock and let them move me around. I don't even remember the drive there, or home. It reminded me of autopsy cuts in TV shows with 2 less lines, and higher. Jen's an old soul. Her family's been in this state longer than any I can think of. She's 30 but graying at the temples. Down to earth. She's sweet and very logical and is tired as hell of telling people Bigfoot doesn't live out here when they find out she's a local and ask. It terrified me when in that empty waiting room, escorting me out, she told me in a low voice that I'd better go out see the Joneses because their livestock guardian dog had died. She had this look on her face when she said it, patting my back, and just said to me, Jim. A bear. It reminded me of that tone someone uses when someone else says something they don't believe. Patronizing. Oh, it was a bear. Sure, just like that. I wanted to throw up. I don't know if she knew. I just left. I feel like I'm being pulled into something terrifying. I've been looking at apartments in Portland all night. I've been trying to draw the thing like I used to with animals back home, but I just can't get it right. I feel like Jen is trying to get me to look into this. I barely know her, but she looked at me like she knew everything about me. Help, I guess. What do I do?